putting your money where your mouth is. So look at yourself. Where do you invest? More than 51 million people have a 401k, and 1.97 billion mutual fund dollars are invested in 3 American public gun companies. Money some gun safety advocates say could trigger change.
They're making money off the backs of dead people. I just can't tolerate it, and I won't let my money support it.
Get that thing out of my home, out of my assets, out of my future. I wish I could take it out of my past, but at least I can get it out of my 401k.
Could divestment be the next front in America's gun war? Joining me now, Eric Milgram. He's the father of 2 children who survived the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary. And he also appeared in that video that you just saw. And also Jennifer Fiore. She's the founder of UnloadYour401k.com. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining. Jennifer, history does tell us that divestment can work, like we saw with the 1990s movement against the tobacco industry, like we saw in the 80s in response to apartheid. Do you think history can repeat itself in this case, especially given that you're going up against a very large, well-oiled lobbying machine?
I absolutely think so, Ronan. Thank you so much for having us on the show today. The political process is stalled, and I think that when we've run up against this time after time again, and the other side is just incredibly powerful minority, but it's a very vocal minority that seems to carry an unwieldy amount of power politically, that the only option left to us is one of economic divestment. And as you pointed out, it's true. The divestment campaign organized by students in South Africa was incredibly powerful in the United States, within the United States, and Harvard University was one of the first campuses to divest from South Africa and is known widely as the leader among that movement. And of course the dominoes began to fall, and the South African apartheid regime eventually fell along with it. And then of course in the tobacco movement, this was also very powerful and helped bring the tobacco industry to the table to negotiate. So yes, divestment is absolutely an option. And you mentioned
university endowments being such a powerful part of this. That's true even more recently when a number of schools divested from Chinese oil companies who were supposedly underwriting some of the violence in Sudan. So there are, both recent and now going back a ways precedents for this. Eric, on the personal side of this, what would you say to people who have investments in gun stocks?
First and foremost, I'm not anti-gun. There's a lot of people who want to paint me that way. I'm not. I am appalled at the behavior of this industry, though, how it puts profits before lives. I do believe that, we can market guns responsibly and legislate them responsibly in a way that would have a meaningful reduction of the severe gun violence problem in this country. With that said, a lot of folks say if you don't like guns, don't buy them. One of the refrains I have to that is, well, what if I don't like gun violence? What I do not buy that? This is something that you can do. If you're an individual who feels powerless in this stalled situation that Jennifer alluded to, one of the things that you can look into, and it's very easy to do, just do a Google search for campaign to unload your 401k. You'll be taken to the page. I did it this morning. It literally took longer to just look up what funds I have in my company's 401k than it did to figure out which funds that they might actually be supporting. So it felt good to know that I am not invested in subsidizing the sale of guns and hence gun violence.
And what do you say to people who argue that gun companies are just good American sources of commerce and that the better targets for this kind of a campaign would be the legislators or the lobbyists on the Hill?
One of the things that we know is campaigns require money. And where there is a profit motive, but there is no disincentive to continue a certain path or a certain course, you won't see a change in behavior. It's not going to be driven by, companies. The people who run these companies actually have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to maximize profits, as long as they're not breaking the law and they're working within the context of the law. In some cases, I could see that if they were to take an action that would be counter to their profits, they might be sued by their investors. And if you look at what happened with Ruger back in the late 80s, when Bill Ruger made the point that I don't want to see, large capacity magazines in the hands of civilians. He believed that those were for soldiers. It's correct in that assumption. The backlash against that company, it took them years before they ever recovered.
So this is something that can really change the bottom line calculus for people. And honestly, as people constantly come to us saying, what can we do, whether they're passionate on the right or the left of this issue, this is something you can do to make your voice heard. So I hope people hear that call. It's an option, depending on your point of view. Put your money where your mouth is. Eric Milgram, Jennifer Fiore, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And remember,